Now, as the world battles conflicts on the ground, another war seems to be brewing, this time in outer space. Is China challenging U.S. supremacy in space? And is Beijing hiding its military presence there through its civilian programs? The U.S. NASA chief Bill Nelson certainly thinks so. Our next report explains the race for dominance among the stars.
The space race is heating up, from North Korea's spy satellite war with neighboring South Korea to the long-standing space rivalry between the US and China. Globally, countries are quite literally aiming for the moon. And now a new warning from the chief of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration has taken it a notch higher. NASA's Administrator Bill Nelson has sounded new alarms against Beijing. Nelson warned US lawmakers on Capitol Hill that China is using civilian space programs to mask its military objectives. He said that China's so-called civilian space mission is in fact a military program, adding that Beijing has been extremely secretive about its space progress. Expressing his concerns, Nelson reiterated his fears. He said, and I quote, "I think, in effect, we are in a race." Nelson made these remarks as he pitched NASA's budget for 2025 to the lawmakers. He stressed that the US must land on the moon before China does. This is to secure the US's lead in the race. As both nations pursue lunar missions, Nelson said if China were to arrive first, it would claim the territory as its own and intimidate other countries into staying out. For years, NASA officials have raised concerns over China's space ambitions. They say Beijing may seek to bully other countries in space if it establishes dominance there, particularly on the moon. In January last year, Nelson warned that the US is locked in a space race with China, and that Washington needs to quote-unquote watch out. Back in 2022, Nelson said that China was contemplating taking over the moon as a part of its military program, which China had categorically denied.
This is not the first time that the United States' NASA has disregarded the facts, talked as they pleased, and smeared China. Some US officials continue to make up facts and slander China's normal and reasonable foreign affairs. China firmly opposes such irresponsible remarks. We urge the US official to earnestly bear the responsibilities of a major country, seriously examine and rectify the negative influence of the US in outer space, and make due contributions to the maintenance of sustained peace and security in the outer space.
The US aims to land astronauts on the moon by September 2026 under its Artemis 3 mission. Meanwhile, China hopes to complete its first crewed mission to the moon by 2030. With this, Beijing aims to become the second country to land a human there. The NASA chief warns China will likely accelerate its plans to close the 4-year gap between itself and the United States. The NASA chief also said Washington must not let its guard down. He cautioned lawmakers that China is throwing in an exorbitant amount of money which will only allow them to grow further. Although the NASA boss stayed confident about US's edge in space exploration, he was careful to not dismiss Beijing's progress. Is the US spooked by China's threats to its space supremacy?
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.